Three people on a couch, back at it with another episode. Today we have a very special guest, Ernesto Villacis. He is a healer and presenter. He's done healings throughout North, Central, and South America. And today he is here to enlighten us all. We have our cool glasses on.
Yay!
These are enlightenment glasses, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Ernesto, welcome to the show. Three people on a couch.
Welcome.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you for enlightening us today. Or you will. No,
Yeah.
I know.
And that's it. I hope you enjoyed the show.
Amanda's got a low belt.
I mean, I'm so new to this. I don't even know when am I supposed to feel enlightening? Is that a feeling?
It's a lifestyle more.
Oh, yeah, I get it.
We'll start off slow, and then we'll get into more and more things. We can start with this. These are glasses. They're blue. they're
Invented by Benjamin Franklin.
They're blue blocking glasses, and this is from what I learned that blue light, which is artificial light from electricity or devices, is really unhealthy for your brain to be in front of at nighttime. So these will actually eliminate the color blue. So.
Mine look like I'm about to go run a marathon, though.
Yours looks like you're going to be doing some welding in the back of Home Depot.
Three people on a couch, sponsored by welding equipment.
These actually are pretty cool because the lights look orange. And I think Joey actually used to drive with these on sometimes. And you told me that you couldn't see any of the green lights.
Now, for all those people listening to this, and be like, "Who's Joey?"
Yeah, who's the
Who are they
fourth
talking
person?
about?
Well,
And-
this is when I first originally saw them is through him. And I remember one time he was driving and he's like, I actually can't even see any of the green lights.
The audience still has no idea who you're talking about.
He's
though.
the camera guy.
He's the camera guy, and like he is amazing. We couldn't have done this without him.
So,
it looks amazing here.
I want to jump right into it.
Yes.
This has been a crazy year. And there was an article that was released by the New York Times with some video as well. I believe it was the Tik Tok. There was a video. A bunch of military people had seen stuff. They'd reported it for years. No one said anything. And there was this bombshell report by New York Times. Now, obviously, they're more of a legit newspaper out there, a news source. And this is quite shocking. But it was during a very stressful time for a lot of people that every time I called them, I was like, "Did you see the New York Times today and hear about the aliens?" Like, I don't have time for that. Like, trying to pay my bills. Like, nobody cared. Nobody cared.
COVID has beat everyone down so much.
Literally.
That we're already getting started with gradual disclosure, and people are just like, well, do you need to be vaxxed to get on the ship? It's like, no. You're
What is
you're focusing on the wrong thing.
When you say the word disclosure, do you just mean like someone releasing information? What does that mean, disclosure?
Yeah, well, disclosure means, releasing information. It's interesting that the government is now releasing more information sort of like in a drip style. Is what they call it. And it's funny that you mentioned like this whole COVID thing. And this New York Times video I was featured in was supposed to actually be released last year. And it got delayed. So it got delayed by like, I think 8 or 9 months. I don't know, like with UFOs, I don't trust always what the government says, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'll just be straight up. I think they do know that there is life on other planets. I think they do know that we've been visited. But what I don't trust is the narrative that they have behind it. So I'm very careful with what they say. I always look at it from, I don't like take it firsthand, like, yeah, that's true. What they said is true.
Mm-hmm.
I always kind of take a step back, analyze it, put it through the filter of what I know about UFOs and extraterrestrials, and then, I take it from there.
So in terms of what they released, what exactly did they release? Like, there was all this buzz. They released this. What was the video? What was so prominent about this video?
Well, you mentioned the Tic Tac video.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from what it looks like in the video, it does look like a legit UFO. We got to understand that the term UFO means unidentified flying object.
Mm-hmm.
So it could actually mean something that is from this world. All right, we just don't know what it is, But whether it's from this earth or not, I really don't know. There could be technology from secret government programs that can that they have craft that can go really fast and that sort of thing. I don't know. So I'll tell you honestly, I don't know for sure what that Tic Tac is. But what I could say for sure is that there is life on other planets. There is life outside of this earth, and that we've been visited. That I can tell you wholeheartedly, like as my
What
belief.
gives you that like evidence for you in your own life that makes you have so convicted in that statement?
So it's funny you ask me that, because I've actually never seen a UFO. I've never, from my knowledge, I don't think I've ever met an extraterrestrial either. I might have.
Something I have to show you.
Yeah. The way I've arrived to believing in it wholeheartedly is through my own logic. So my own research, my own logic, and intuition.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I feel like intuition plays the biggest role in it. We don't know for sure through facts, but there's some things that resonate at your core more than others, and for some people more than others. Like maybe for ET life, for you guys, it's you want to see the facts. Everyone wants to see the facts, but I feel like certain things, it just feels like, yeah, of course that's true.
Right. That then we get into the realm of more like mental, spiritual, type of talk. When we talk about intuition, we're talking about kind of like a sixth sense, right? From what I understand from my studies in spirituality, metaphysics, women actually have stronger intuitions. They have a stronger psychic
Is that true?
sixth sense.
Yes, it's true.
And
I
mothers of all female, the mothers have it very strongly. I don't want to get too metaphysical into it, but when they give birth, apparently they go through a really, really strong spiritual experience.
It makes sense because when a woman is pregnant, they're reconnecting with the spirit world, so to speak, when a soul is coming in to incarnate back into a vessel. So going through that, it's like everyone's born and we're connected to spirit, and then we kind of get like lost in the mix of this very interesting, stimulating place. And then when a woman is pregnant, she's kind of reconnected to that in a way. Even if you don't believe it's a spiritual thing, it's everyone can agree, like the miracle of life. A woman is birthing life, creating something, and it's
really special.
It is.
You're like,
yeah.
I don't know. You're like, Brian is looking at me like, is that true? And I'm like, I don't know. I haven't given birth yet. So we'll see.
In a past life.
Yeah, in a past life, maybe. But right now, no. Not even close. But yeah, it sounds interesting. I'm very new to this. I just know that I'm super scared about childbirth. I'm just so scared of it. I don't know why. I think I said that on the previous episode when we were talking about sex, and I was just like, I'm terrified of giving birth, and I don't really know why. I just know I'm terrified.
Hey, I would be too if I was. I'd be honest. Like I've thought about it before. Like, what if I was a woman? And like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I have a lot of respect for mothers. Like, extreme amount of respect. They go through so much pain. But okay, how do we get into?
I feel like giving birth it's like going in for a like big surgery, and a lot of times it actually ends in a surgery if you're getting a C-section or something. So like that happened to my friend. She went in expecting to give birth, and it's like, surprise, like you're getting a surgery. She got breast implants. No, she got
Hey, when that happens,
she got
damn it.
So I get why a part of you is nervous about it, but I feel like most women I've spoken to, as soon as their baby is given to them, it's all
I know, but
it.
because it's like when you give birth, I have a lot of friends that did it. They say like, oh, it was the best day of my life, it was the worst day of my life, it hurt so much, it's undescribable, but they still like do it again. Like people have siblings, so it can't be that bad.
Breaking news: people have siblings.
But like, so it has to be very special.
How is being from Sweden? Is there talk of aliens there? Do people even talk about it? Is it sort of just whatever? Or what's the?
I'm trying to think about it. No, we don't really. It's not like a big thing there, or we discuss it in school. Maybe everyone is, I guess, open to it, because it wouldn't really make sense if we were the only living, thinking creature in the entire universe. It just doesn't make sense. But other than that, no, we don't have like a framework of this is life on other planets.
I wonder if there's a department of like UFO research or sightings in Sweden. I think there probably is. I know Brazil has. I know a lot of big countries do. So actually, I did recently a podcast. I'm trying to get a podcast of my own too, with this girl from Brazil, and she was telling me that Brazil has a UFO day, a national UFO day.
Wow,
And where,
really?
Yeah. Where it was one day, can't remember the day, but it was sometime I think in the 80s, where there was like over a dozen UFO sightings in like large cities across Brazil, and the Brazilian Air Force was like, "What is going on here?" So they couldn't even like explain it. So they had to make a UFO day because it was such a fascinating.
They had something similar here. I think the Phoenix Lights.
The Phoenix Lights.
The Phoenix
yes,
Lights.
in 1991.
Yeah,
I think.
in
Those were the 12 lights that showed up, and like 300 people saw it all. Is that what that is?
No, it was when like
way more than 300.
15 flashlights like fell off the back of a truck and outside Phoenix, and they got
No.
Okay, wait. Wrap me in
The
here.
audience
All right.
is like, what the
Sweet
hell?
is in the room. Sweet is in the room. You have to recap for me.
Okay,
What
So
happened?
the Phoenix Lights is
Go.
when multiple UFOs, was it how many? I don't even know, but they flew over the city of Phoenix and they hung out above for a while, so long that there was no refuting that happened, but the media refused to cover it.
Yeah,
basically.
hundreds, probably tens to probably hundreds of thousands of people
But there must be
reported.
tons of video footage.
There is.
There
and
is,
there's even
yeah.
a documentary film.
There is.
Phoenix Lights, probably.
And there-
but I watched this some
There's
years
a
ago.
book too, Avatars of the Phoenix Lights,
Mhm.
and I think the name of the extraterrestrials that were allegedly in those were the Yael. I think that's what they were called in the book.
Who comes up with these names? John Yael. No coincidence. He's
No,
also the author.
But you know what I found interesting about that sighting? I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of the people that saw that sighting reported to have felt a sense of peace and love. So one thing when I talk to UFO contactees or people that have had sightings and that sort of thing, I've talked to a lot of them, of course, because I belong to a church that's based on UFO things. I asked them, like, so what did you feel when you had that sighting? Because one thing is, okay, actually visibly, like physically seeing something. Okay, it was triangular shaped, it was rectangular shaped. Oh, it blinked in and out of, existence. Oh, it was transparent. Another thing is, but what did you feel? Like, what kind of feeling did it give you? And a lot of the time, it's like excitement or ooh, ah. But these people from Phoenix Lights, a lot of them felt peace and love and,
Almost like a
the heart.
return to home type of
Yeah.
feeling.
They didn't feel any threat.
This is
And this thing didn't give any threat. It didn't bomb. Like, it didn't, like, shoot down laser beams. Because we got to think about it. If these craft come to this earth, right, from a very, very far place, they must have the technology then to destroy us and wipe us out in minutes or hours. But yet they don't.
Why not? This is what I don't get, though. So let's say, like, if they're hanging out above Phoenix, just chilling there, it's obvious. Look, there's aliens. They exist, right? Why not just come down and give a speech? Say hi.
well,
Go for
yeah,
lunch. I know, great spot. It's got breakfast specials if the aliens are listening.
So if we have anyone that is not from this earth listening to
I
this
think-
podcast,
I think
Lunch is on us.
I think the reason why they don't is because it's our lesson to learn to create peace here and to raise our frequency and become a society that can overcome our fears, because in our consciousness we have so much fear about the idea of what's in the unknown. The fear of death is huge. The fear of what's in outer space. Is there other life out there? And we repress and compartmentalize all of this fear, and we see it presented in the media where ETs and aliens are malevolent, violent beings that are against us, and that's just a reflection of the fear we have. So we're not going to get the lessons per se. I know that's not a
We're not going to get the lessons unless the teacher shows up.
But-
but
That's the
it's not a
reality.
satisfying answer, because it's like just show up already.
Well,
but
we said they most likely have the technology to destroy the Earth. They've traveled who knows how long to get
Light
here.
But-
years.
So why not use their cloaking devices? They know we have, if they do exist, they don't have to show their spaceships. Why hang out there even and show that they're real? If not, they're
because
going to
it gets the conversation
Well,
going.
But saying for us to learn a lesson is almost like telling a bunch of 8-year-olds to like figure out teaching themselves class. It's just not going to happen.
I mean, who says that we're not in contact with them? I mean,
we could
the
be.
thing
Yeah,
is,
that's a
the thing
possibility
is,
for sure.
yeah, because the thing is, I'm like, I don't know what I believe in at all, but I'm like, well, if they are here, if they even entered the earth, like, who would they speak to? Because I already know that there's a small percentage of people on this earth that will be like, you cannot find them anywhere, and because they're rich or like stuff like that. And I definitely think that if we have some contacts, we might already have someone that
So
you know.
what you're trying to say is we should try to reach out and bring them on the podcast.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you're listening, once again, no,
I
but-
can
yeah,
sort
sorry.
of answer this.
yes.
So Steve kind of brought up something that I hold as a belief as well, and that is karma,
Mm-hmm.
right? If they just showed up and said, "Hey, we're here. We have this magic wand. We can fix all your problems in a blink of an eye," we wouldn't learn the lessons that we need to learn in order to evolve. And you kind of preluded to that with the 8-year-old telling them what to do. You see, these beings, they're more technologically advanced than us. They're more spiritually advanced than us. So they look at us like this in the classroom
Right.
of the universe. And they urge us, they want us to get better. They've actually been coming here for millennia in different ways as different spiritual leaders, telling us, showing us the path back to goodness, to love and greatness. But we keep on and on, this vicious cycle of greed, of power, of torture, of, so they can't do everything for us. Like suppose you have an 8-year-old. If you always parent it till it's 30 years old, it's never going to grow up to be on its own effectively in society. So we have a responsibility. In the Ethereal Society, we say for every step we take towards the Cosmic Master, they take 2 towards us. So we got to actually do the work ourselves. God helps those who help themselves. So we have to kind of like show them we're ready, and then they will come, So
I just think, as a teacher myself, I think a way better approach is to show up now and be like, "Hey guys, this is an option.
But they have. That's
Test
the
it
thing.
out. Like do math. Like go like
But you're using logic, and I think
Mhm.
that's what trips people up, because logically it would make sense, like stop all the war right now. But it begs the question: what is this experience we call life? We're basing it on this 3D reality we've created of the society is structured, and we use money, and we do this, and we do these types of things. But what are the real lessons of why we're actually
Right,
here
because
doing this?
you might feel like you're ready to have a contact with them, right? To have a very spiritual, beautiful experience with an extraterrestrial from Venus, for example, or Mars. You might feel you're ready. Yeah, probably all of us in here will actually show them love and respect, right? But that's our individual karma. We share karma with the whole of the human race as well. We share karma in
when you
regards
say
to a
karma,
country.
what do you mean by that?
I did a presentation on this recently, so it's still fresh in my mind. Karma, the word karma means action. It's actually a Sanskrit word, just like yoga. Yoga comes from the Sanskrit language. It's one of 2 most ancient languages. And every action has a reaction. That is the law of karma, right? But karma is every thought, word, or deed, right? So by every thought and every word we say and every act we do, we're developing either good karma or bad karma, right? So we got to make sure we always are aware of our thoughts and words and deeds so that we create a good karmic pattern. That's what all the great religious or spiritual leaders have taught us: be good to one another, serve one another, because they want us to develop a good karmic pattern so that then we can have greater realizations and live in a more beautiful environment like they did or they do in their home planets.
Do you think out of all of like we have socialism, communism, capitalism, what do you think aliens would be more inclined to want to use for us?
So
Because
they
the reason I ask is like people naturally have different gifts and abilities and drives, right? Some people are super ambitious and they want to start their own businesses and they'll work, literally over 100 hours a week, even though they're the richest person in the world, like Elon Musk, right? And there's plenty of examples like that. Then you have opposite people, like the second they get rich, they're done, they retire at 30 and like that's it. So people have different intrinsic sort of goals and motivations. So I'm curious how that could work, or how would you answer that in terms of like, what do you see? Like say aliens came up and we all found it. We're like, yes, we're at that level. What does the world look like now? Is everyone equal?
Well, to just answer that last point, no one's equal. I know that's like, a slap in the face probably to a lot of people. Yeah, I'm not holding back like Dave Chappelle. So no one is created equal. You can't tell me that Jesus is equal to Hitler. Obviously Jesus is more important to the world than Hitler is. But it doesn't mean that Hitler doesn't have the same potential as Jesus. He does. And he will eventually become a Jesus.
Everyone will become Jesus.
Everyone eventually will become like a Jesus.
In terms of just being compassionate.
Exactly. And just in terms of like,
and that's
of awareness, of consciousness, and
who does Jesus become?
And power. Huh?
Who does Jesus become?
Well,
if we're all become like him, who does he become?
Jesus,
like, hey, what about me, guys?
he too will continue evolving till becomes, if you want to go that deep,
just pure light.
Yeah, I mean, we all. So like one of the most beautiful truths that I have, found and believe in is that that we all eventually will journey our way back to the absolute reality, the
source,
all in all, the source. We're all on our way back home, all right, to our creator. That's a truth that's been propounded in Hinduism and other traditions throughout the millennia. And
are you Ram Dass fan?
I just recently started getting into him. I wasn't like I never really got too much into him, but a lot of my friends were heavy into his stuff. So I do listen to Krishna Das. I met Krishna Das. He was a great Ram Dass follower. But we all will eventually reach that enlightenment, that greater awareness and consciousness. I kind of see it as two people in a racetrack. One person is very enlightened. He's doing good deeds, good actions, serving, loving unconditionally. So he's running towards the race line. He's booking it. The other guy is murdering, thieving, so he has weights on his shoulders. So he's taking a long time. So it's about taking those weights off and just starting to like surrender more to divinity and be good to others. And part of that is, just going within and studying these things and, just being more perceptive. And like what you guys do here is great. I mean, you're doing a service to other people, you're getting the word out, you're funny. I think humor is medicine. It absolutely is, So you're making people smile. So if you do that and you use it for good, then you'll see your karmic patterns start changing and things around you, your environment, people start noticing something about you. Like, this guy isn't the same, the same Brian or the same Steve or the same Amanda as before. So,
yes, and I think that really it keeps people entrenched in the 3D when we're given names and we think even our self-perception.
What does 3D mean? Sorry.
Three-dimensional. So we're just dealing with this lower physical reality, space and time, basically.
What? I'm just kidding.
Maybe 3D wasn't a good word, but just
when I say 3D, I think of like a movie with glasses and things are popping out. So is that more like a metaphor, like 3D being more like interactive?
So
smell it?
Apparently we're already in fourth dimensional because we have 3 dimensions of space
hang
and
on.
one of time.
Before we get to 4, what is 3D stuff?
It's just the dimensions that we operate in, living in a body in the way we have our five senses and having
Okay, so the
vectors.
senses interacting with the people, you're saying we call that 3D.
Yeah, it's three
Uh-huh.
it's three dimensions of like the vectors of how we perceive, and then the one of time.
And what would 4D be?
So apparently we're already in 4D because
I'm
time.
in 3D. That was fast. We're making progress on this podcast.
If you go to IMAX, you can flip it up. No, you hear like 3D and you think like it's the glasses you cut out in the back of the cereal box.
And we started the
to watch it.
episode with red glasses.
Exactly. So what was I
We
saying?
knew it was coming.
So when we're given names, so let's just say when we were living day-to-day life and just kind of lost in the day-to-day life, we're given names. You're Brian. I'm a Steve. We tend to create a continuity that might not necessarily be there by default unless we keep creating it. And other people will also create that continuity based on the identity that you have. But like he was saying, you'll notice like, oh, this seems like a different Amanda, and we'll just say, oh, she changed. Something happened in her life, she changed. But it really could be a completely different version of her that is the result of her expanding her consciousness in some
I think
way.
a really simpler way to me almost to say what you're saying is by changing your habits. Because your habits sort of recreate who you are, right? You wake up.
That's what I was gonna say.
Your
Yeah.
habits. I'm stealing this from Joe Dispenza. I was listening to his audio.
Oh,
podcast.
he's
I
great.
need to tell you, he was talking all about like your
Yeah.
habits of who you wake up. You know, you turn the TV on, you check your news feed. This reinforces, your life, what's going on in the world. You go on your Instagram. This reinforces who you are on social media. Then you check the news. That reinforces the fear you now fear. Then you go to your office and you wave to your friend John. Hey, John, nice to see you.
Yes.
You sit down. So all these sort of habits.
But what
reinforce
changes
that.
first, the habits, or do you have an expansion of consciousness, and
habits.
then the habits come from the result
I
of
think
that?
I think it could be a chicken and egg situation, but I personally think it's the habits. I think when you consciously start changing your habits, then you become a new person.
I actually had like one of those things. I had a friend who was like struggling, and I told him like, when I'm thinking, and this is gonna sound a little bit weird, but when I'm thinking, I always try to think positively. So even if I have a bad thought, I end it on like a positive note.
Amazing.
So even if it's like, oh, it's raining, so I can stay in. You know, like even if
You
it's
see
something
that?
Good mindset.
stupid,
It
but I
is.
always
Not
always
stupid at
told
all.
no, but I always told him, I was like, think, end the thought positively at least.
Yeah.
See,
And-
that is a spiritual practice in itself.
And I didn't even know.
And if you can do
Yeah.
that, if you can do that with ease, that's very impressive because I really
Yeah.
struggle with being able to do that. I know it falls into complaining. So it's like, oh, what the hell? It's raining, and the complaints are reinforcing a negative.
It's fun
reality.
to complain sometimes, and that it's addicting to complain, to feel
Yeah.
sorry for yourself.
it's
It
a
can be
good- it's a
We're
way-
addicted to fear. We're
We're
addicted
addicted
to
fear,
negativity.
suffering.
It's a way people relate to each other.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, can you believe this traffic?
But that's so funny because my friend, when I first told him like to think like this or end the thought positively, I remember because we were talking on the phone a lot, and he was like, you know what? It becomes to get easier the more I practice it.
Exactly.
So he was like, it actually works better and better, and I do feel better and better. So that was fun.
I think that's the difference
Right.
between people who are
There you go.
pessimistic and optimistic by nature as well. I think optimism, some people are more inclined one way or another, but I think optimism can be learned. I think you can sort of force yourself to kind of, when those negative beliefs and thoughts come up, you can sort of push them aside and try to adopt more of an optimistic outlook.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's not easy.
Oh yeah.
But then you can always find something positive in it. And like maybe you get fired from your job. Who was I was literally just talking. I was talking to my friend, and his he got fired from his job at the start of the pandemic, and he was like kind of devastated. He lost his job, his whole career, everything. Bam, done. Both him and his other buddy. And like, what do we do? And they're also actors, but they also worked in like IT on the side, and they lost the IT jobs. And so they're like, oh, let's start TikToking. I'm like, all right, why not? They now make more money than they made from their jobs through their TikTok.
That's
videos.
awesome.
So in the moment, they were devastated and they were awful. And some people could look at that and just spend the next year in depression, hating themselves. But they're like, well, we got time. Let's shoot some funny stuff now. And now that's their business. And I think it's not easy. It's hard to do that. But sometimes what happens in the present as negative can turn out to actually be a positive in the future.
Well, because nothing has a definition until you attach one. But I think we subconsciously and automatically
Even that definition?
Even that, everything, yeah. We subconsciously like attach definitions like automatically. Oh, it's raining. It doesn't feel like you define that negatively. It just feels so automatic. But I think we do that all the time And that's why I feel like you really have to dig through and uncover what the definitions of things are. But that can be challenging, and that is also a definition.
Yeah, I believe we're not meant to suffer here. I think we're meant to live in peace and joy and harmony, but we bring upon the suffering ourselves. We are responsible. There's a book that my spiritual teacher, Dr. George King, wrote called You Are Responsible. And it's such a great title because, you are responsible for all the wars, all the crimes. We share that responsibility as members of the human race. So when are we going to finally buckle down and say, hey, we need to, get our stuff together?
Yeah.
So, we can do it as individuals. And it starts as an individual. It starts by making that choice like you made. Like, hey, I'm going to start practicing to think more positively. Just by doing that, you're already going to start pedaling that wheel, that karmic cycle. And if you keep nurturing that, if you keep watering that seed of positivity, it will begin to flourish and flourish more and more until you start getting greater, you'll start picking up things. You'll start creating greater realms of access of information, knowledge, people. You'll start meeting people that tell you things, and just the whole life will take off.
Do you there's two theories that are kind of floating around. I'm kind of curious if either of them, even maybe you don't think either of them, but one is sort of we started evolving, and then we discovered mushrooms, and we started eating magic mushrooms.
Is this from Joe Rogan?
It's not from Joe Rogan. He may have mentioned it a few times, but it's from a.
This is the recycling podcast.
I knew that was going to come up, but no, it's. I heard about this before even. Was on Joe Rogan, because there's a bunch of like scientists who sort of believe in this theory that we basically evolved from eating this stuff, and this sort of helped our minds expand, because essentially in the last 50,000 years, our prefrontal cortex started developing, which is this part of the brain, which is the front of your head, and that's responsible for planning in the future. This is the most recent part of our brains, right? And they're like, well, why did that just evolve all of a sudden? Another theory is that, probably on Joe Rogan as well, but that alien
Sponsor
DNA was spliced into human DNA at some point.
The Anunnaki.
Who?
The Anunnaki.
What are your thoughts on those two ideas? Do you think they're just kind of rubbish, or do you think there's some truth to them?
Oh man,
is that a loaded question?
No, I mean,
Joe Rogan, what are you doing here?
Yeah. Joe, go back.
I mean, if you talk about our origins, I can, from what I understand, what I've looked into, what I believe, our history really dates back millions upon millions upon millions of years to a different planet.
Steven nods his head in agreement.
Yeah.
Malbec.
Yeah.
What did you say? Baldeck?
Malbec.
Malbec. What is Malbec? Is that a place?
It's a wine.
Oh.
No, it's not.
I love that.
It's a planet with just wines. No. So are you familiar with the asteroid belt? Do you remember this from 5th grade science?
Yeah.
You got one at JCPenney the other day.
An asteroid belt?
So they go out of business?
I think that's about what that company's worth these days. A penny. I don't know if they went out of business. I know Filene's did.
Who?
Exactly. No one remembers Filene's? Was it an East Coast thing?
Never heard of it. Sorry, go on.
I'm not following.
Me neither. You're not alone in
I'm
that.
just
No
here.
one? Circuit City?
Okay,
I remember
can you-
Circuit City.
Okay.
Enron? Come on.
For the people that are listening and don't know what it is, could you please explain?
The asteroid belt, sure. So the asteroid belt is it's a ton of floating rock in between Jupiter and Mars, okay, in our solar system. And scientists actually are finally catching up to the possibility that it was a planet.
The whole belt.
All the floating rocks
Oh,
that we
a planet
call
that
the asteroid
exploded or
belt.
something?
Right. So Dr. George King, I think back in the 70s, was the one that kind of put it out there, saying that it indeed was a planet and that was our original home. And it was called Malbec, right? Reason why it exploded was because of our own stupidity, if you want to put it that way. We experimented with atomic weaponry. we clashed amongst ourselves, and we destroyed the planet. Now, you might say, okay, if that was our home planet and we exploded, how are we still alive?
Elon Musk. Their version of Elon Musk.
So
we got to get to Earth. There's so many people to Earth. Flash forward 1,000,000 years. We got to go to Mars.
I love that theory, though.
So this was over 18 million years ago. And it was decided upon this council in the solar system of, very advanced beings that the Mother Earth could take the souls that lived on Maldek upon her back, right? So that's how we incarnated into this planet. In order to continue learning our lessons, we had to start from very low levels of consciousness until we ended up developing into a great civilization called Lemuria, all right? In Lemuria, we destroyed ourselves again.
I'm noticing a pattern here.
Yes.
Your childhood.
It's kind of what we do here.
It's kind of what we do. We just keep destroying ourselves. After Lemuria, again, we had to start from the slime and then work our way up until we developed a civilization that probably most of you are aware of called Atlantis. And in this great civilization, we did have contact with beings from other worlds. We had great healing powers. We were very psychic. We were living pretty well. But then again, the I guess you could call the disease, the only real disease that exists on Earth, which is greed, which is fear, which is power, that struck again, and there was another battle. Atomic weaponry was again discovered. You can actually read about this in the ancient Hindu scripts. They talk about atomic weapons that date back tens of thousands of years ago. And again, we destroyed a civilization. We destroyed ourselves, and we had to start again. And now we're in this present civilization that we're living in.
So when you say start again, do you literally mean like bugs, monkeys, Homo erectus, or like just sort of appearing? Like, is that more sort of a definition of like evolution?
Yeah, so
in a sense,
yeah, so
I think it's like great floods that wiped out civilization. It destroyed records, and it
floods,
also set it back technologically. In some ways.
I mean, we had to evolve technologically, spiritually, all of that again. I don't think we reverted. No, we didn't revert back to like plant life or rock life after the destruction of Atlantis, but we did revert back to very, very primitive human type beings.
sort of like they lost everything. All their stuff was in the house burnt down.
Exactly.
Now they're out with no tools.
Yeah.
Kind of situation like
right.
that. Or?
And right.
They still had McDonald's that always was there.
So now, fast forward from the fall of Atlantis to the 1950s. In the 1950s, again, we started experimenting with atomic weaponry. We had all these test sites all over these islands in the Pacific and this and that. And guess what else happened in the 1950s?
Cold War?
Massive UFO sightings all over. UFO craze in this country, UFO conventions in Joshua Tree, all over California. George Adamski is a great UFO contactee, George Van Tassel, many others in Europe. I think there were even some Swedish ones, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So UFO phenomena really hit big in the 1950s. Why? Because they were coming to warn us about what we did in the past with atomic weaponry. So that's when Dr. George King came in, my spiritual teacher and founder of the Theory Society. He came in and he started receiving what we call transmissions. Transmissions are telepathic communications that he received from these beings from other worlds. And they were all very, very uplifting, powerful spiritual messages. Some of it new, some not new, most of it not new. It's everything that we've been taught from other great masters like Jesus and Buddha and Krishna. But Moses, yes, Jews Moses, Lao Tse, Confucius, I could go on. But he was, a lot of the messages were about, hey, guys, you're falling back into that same pattern, so
This begs the question, though,
Mhm.
are we then just destined to always fall back into this pattern? Are we flawed at the core?
No, so our true nature is spiritual. But so I found it, yeah, and I hear this a lot, like, oh, I'm new to spirituality. Oh, I don't know much about spirituality. No, you do. You just don't remember. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. And you probably heard that.
Yeah, we are Spirit, and that's why I
Right.
wanted to talk to you guys about Spirit Airlines. They're offering
We are sponsored by
Spirit Airlines is
Spirit.
offering-
You guys are these sponsors.
No. But okay, I just have something that I just quickly want to mention, just because I'm curious, because I'm totally new to this. So, what are your approach to people when they think about life after death and they think about spirits and ghosts?
Right.
What do you think about that? Like, is that connected in this somehow?
A lot of it all is. Everything is. God is
yeah.
everything.
I think ghosts are ghosts. This is from what I understand. It's kind of souls that are in some kind of astral realm. They're in between of being in a body and being
Yes.
completely spirit. So they're in an astral realm. So they can't take on a body, but they can still play a part somewhat.
So to answer your question, and this might answer yours too, and yours
Mine was, what was your social security number?
And your bank account.
Yeah, your bank account. Very curious.
PIN code. I'm sorry. We're just
Three
this
robbers
is how
on
we
an
do.
account.
This is how we communicate.
This is how we
Continue.
make
I love
money.
it.
We don't have sponsorships yet. Sorry, but can someone get his wallet?
One day.
So
One-
that's why you
all
invited
my
me to
guys.
this podcast.
It's like, why does he want bank statements? It's weird.
Sorry, you were saying.
Yes.
Dia amigo, what is it?
I'm sorry. Our question about ghosts.
There is life after life.
Okay.
There's no such thing as death.
Let's find out.
Like
No!
I know.
two people on.
Why would I
this is
be the
dark
one to
I think
die?
our true essence is always in spirit, and we are not defined by time, and that's why we say life and death, and there's a before and after. But if we're always existing as this infinite energy, then there's not going to be a beginning or an end. It just is. Our mind wants to put it in the parameters of time. Well, when does it
Right.
begin? When does it end?
Well, what do you mean by
So-
life after life?
So this body, right? Physical body we're touching is just a suit for the soul. Okay, the soul is what gives this body character, is what gives it some memories from past lives. It's what gives it energy and character. It gives it life. If you remove the soul from this body, it's nothing. Now, there were some studies done. I actually saw this, I think, on History or Discovery Channel some
The
time
body
ago.
dies 0.6 or something.
21 grams.
21 grams.
Like the name of that movie.
Yes.
I can't remember if that was true or disproven.
Well,
Let's talk about it.
so going back to ghosts and spirits, millions upon millions of people have had these type of experiences. I myself, I sort of had one where I felt something coming, like literally walking past me, air and everything. I open my eyes, I don't see anything physically.
That was me. Sorry
So-
about that. I was really hungry. I was looking for some food.
I've also felt things behind me, like big people and all this kind of stuff.
Also
and
me.
people see Native American guides when I do healing. So
That's a really
um,
interesting thing with the Native
so-
Americans, because I've actually met someone recently. Sorry to cut you off, but I was talking
Yeah.
about that. We were in Big Bear, and someone was like, "I'm getting it's this Camp Surrender weekend retreat I went to, and they're like, I'm seeing all these spirits of Native Americans, and they're glad we're here and like respecting
good,
the land."
good.
It's a very interesting thing.
I mean, the fun part,
We just keep cutting you off.
I'm sorry to cut you
Well,
off, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Hey!
So-
all right. One person on the couch.
Speaking of getting ghosted.
So, yeah. So, I was never anyone that believed in anything. I didn't want to define what I believed in. Didn't want to call it God. I didn't want to call it ghost. I didn't want to say anything because I don't know. I don't want to put it into a category. But I do have one very like a very weird situation that just made me believe that it's something going on. And it was actually because me and my mom, when I was a kid, we moved into this new house. And it was something about that house. I remember I was at the house, I was completely alone. Then I heard this sound. I wasn't really afraid until I was going to go look for the sound. So it was just a sound, and I thought it was coming from outside the house. I looked out the window, nothing there. And then it just comes like a picture in my mind. It's going to sound weird, but it's like a picture. And it's a picture of a woman and a child. That's all I see. And then but the feeling I get is the worst part. Because like all my spine is just like, ooh. And then I just run out the house. Never, think about it again. I was like, and then I run home to my boyfriend. Then I move in with my boyfriend. I'm like 15, 16 at the time. So I don't spend too much time in that house. And then a year later, I'm with my mom at an event or like a social gathering. I think we went out for dinner, and I asked her, like, how do you feel about the house now when you've been living there for a year? And she doesn't believe in anything. Like, she is the strictest woman. She doesn't believe in ghosts. She doesn't believe in anything supernatural. And then she says, I have these weird dreams. And I'm like, oh. And I almost forgot this, thing that I had. And I was like, oh, what kind of dreams? She's like, well, sometimes I'm not even asleep. It's just like a picture of a woman and her child.
Real.
And that, I remember that feeling because it was a year in between, and I never told her.
You never talked to her about it?
No, I never did. And then, the feelings, when I later broke up with my boyfriend and moved back into the house, I could wake up a lot in the middle of the night, and it was a specific point in the room where I always felt, or not always, but sometimes felt that someone was standing there. And
in a scary way or like in a comforting way?
I don't know. I wasn't scared, but I wasn't like, oh, I'm peace and quiet. It was just like, wait, someone's there. No one's there. And
none of us are sleeping tonight.
Intuition we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, exactly. You knew from your
I
your
just
gut.
knew.
Feeling,
Yeah.
gut, intuition, same
So,
thing.
Yeah, because that was one of the first things that I thought about when we were talking about this, that you have a feeling or an intuition.
Right.
And after that happened, I was like, no, I kind of know it's something.
You
I don't
make
know
a
what
great
it is,
healer,
but
by the way.
What?
You'd make a good healer if you tap into that more.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really
you
good
see?
healer.
You see? Career change. I just quit my job, so.
Going off of that, when you're doing healings and when you're healing yourself, do you think that opens yourself up for more of these supernatural experiences the more you clear out the physical muck that holds you down?
Yeah, so when I do healings, so I was just to give like a little backstory about healings for me. So I was certified through my church, the Ethereal Society. We do healing workshops and we certify. Back in 2013, when I was living in Miami, Florida, which is where I'm from, and the founder of the church, he was a great healer. I mean, he was able to, he took on cancer from a patient and healed it within himself. So he got a cancer from a patient, like, and put it on himself and then healed himself. He, at 11 years old, his mother was bedridden. He went out to the woods and he prayed for her, came back, and she was up and cooking. So this man was obviously a really, really special, unique person from an early age. So when he came up with this healing technique that we call the King technique, he wanted it to be simple enough so that as many people as possible can do it without having to be so extremely psychic and spiritually advanced. And the book that he came out with that teaches the technique is called You Too Can Heal. Too, meaning anybody could heal. Mm-hmm. It's not a gift. So there's no such thing as a gift. No one is gifted with something. It's an ability. It's a trained ability. Everybody has the ability to become a healer. everybody has the ability to become a great pianist or comedian or actor or whatever you want to be. The reason why there's people that might seem like they're gifted with like 5-year-olds on YouTube playing Mozart is because they've trained that ability they have for lifetimes, right? Because this is where reincarnation comes into place. Now, you might say, oh, wow, you're such a great healer, you know, like, yeah, I started healing when I was 20. But no, it's because I've had experience from previous lives, probably doing healings for God knows what or who.
Can you pick up on people's like auras or their energies?
So I would have to like really like get into it. I can't just like sitting down right now. Like
I've seen an aura once. I think I've told you this story. Maybe you haven't heard it, but I've saw a guy's aura after having a sexual experience, and afterwards, his entire outline of his body was radiating white, like vibrant light.
Well, that's what an aura. An
aura
aura.
Cocaine.
It was actually uranium poisoning. But,
It is an outline. So it is, yeah. It's supposed to be like an outline. So I don't claim to be psychic. Like I don't go around telling people I'm psychic.
But you are.
I knew you were gonna say that.
No, yeah. No, but
you do Reiki though, right?
So the healing I do isn't the Reiki is its own modality. But it's the same, like spiritual. It uses spiritual energy or chi or prana, energy healing. It's all the same, just different modalities.
And you pick up on someone else's energy. You can be like, oh, I'm sensing tension here, or.
So when I give healings, I sometimes I'm just so focused in doing the job that I don't really like think about the guide, the Native American guide that some of my patients have seen, or you know, this or that, or I'm just giving them love and light and using the visualizations I was trained to use and that sort of thing. Really, you know, it sometimes that my patients or clients, they have more of a mystic experience than I do, really. Like it's just like, to me, it's just like, here I am, because all I really am is just a channel. A healer really is just a channel. They open themselves up for creator, God, source, whatever you want to call it. All right, a healer has to believe in a higher power in order to bring that power upon them, and they just send it, and boom. That's all it is, really.
It's just different names for the Groupons, but it's all it's all the same thing. Reiki, body work.
So if we were to, are we gonna do one on Amanda? Or is that post show?
Should
or
we?
Is that?
I want to do it. Let's do it.
Amanda will be the healer.
No, I'm not the healer.
Can we do it?
You're healing me.
Should we?
Yeah, we can. This is what I was thinking. For Ernesto
describe what you're doing.
If Ernesto wants to do it, and I could hold the mic, because you probably need both your hands, then I can hold the mic, and if you want to.
We can shoot this episode, and then afterwards we can do it as a sub.
Yeah.
You want to do it as sub, not on the podcast itself.
We could do it as like
It'll be too much quiet.
It'll be like OnlyFans content. It'll just be extra.
Yeah, give us money. We need it.
It'll be our Patreon content.
So we'll heal her after the episode.
She's like dying now. We're gonna heal her in like 20 minutes.
We're gonna heal
next year. We're booked up till then.
Do you feel that? So you said you don't consider yourself psychic, but do you believe that eventually you'll tap into those skills, or is it more?
Yes.
So you do believe that? You don't.
I believe
I knew you were gonna say that.
Now you're just reusing his
All
joke.
right.
So like earlier on, I said that eventually we all will become enlightened beings. That's part of our evolution, right? And part of becoming a great enlightened being, like a Jesus or a Buddha, is developing those powers of psychic powers. Like Jesus walking on water, that's a real thing. That is not fantasy. That is real. Like there are yogis in India and monks in Tibet that have these powers. I know somebody who saw a yogi manifest food right in front of him at an ashram in India like a few years ago. You know, so it's like,
Or levitating.
yeah, and I have a cousin who saw a nun levitating in Ecuador. You know, I myself have felt an aura.
But
with
why
my
not
hands
share
and-
these abilities with everyone?
Because
Let us
it's-
go to Times Square.
I think
levitate.
I think the thing is,
So-
our
Raise people's
our
consciousness.
ego gets in the way, but I think it's unfolding as it's supposed to. So your cousin who saw the nun levitating,
Yeah, you told me not to share that with anybody, but I'll.
I feel like that was supposed to happen for him, and then it gets spread in that way.
Well, why not go and do it so more people can experience?
But why? It's not about forcing it because the consciousness
not
isn't
forcing
there
it, just
yet.
open people's minds or get us to what you were saying to that end point faster.
Because
I mean, but that's the problem. Like, then you demand proof.
so yeah, I think it can be done that way, but there's
Spiritual mandate.
if
You must levitate to get into the bar.
I'm in spiritual lockdown.
So like we were talking about extraterrestrial beings, and I was mostly referring to ones of light. But there is evil ones too. There are great light workers, spiritual workers like healers, and great yogis that are spiritual, great masters that are spiritual. But there's also really wicked, evil black magicians, witches, warlocks, and that sort of thing. That's real too, right? So the reason why it's not good from a spiritual standpoint to go showing off your psychic abilities and your levitation and that sort of thing is because then people, I think, might abuse it. People might be like, but I want to train from you so I could learn to do this. And then, but you see, there's a process in spiritual path. You have to purify your heart and your soul before you can learn greater things. Because what happens then, if you don't purify your heart and soul enough, you'll then gain these great powers, and then you might abuse it. You might fall back to the dark side. This is real. This is real. This is as real as we are sitting here right now. You know, so a person that learned the healing technique that I learned could use that same technique for bad. Can really seriously injure a person, steal his energy, you know, and that sort of thing. So that's why, like, it's very important that when we talk about these things and when we, demonstrate these things, we do it from a place of love. We do it from a place of spiritual understanding and discipline. So discipline is really one of the most important things in spirituality. People think, oh, I'm being spiritual because I'm meditating by the fire, knitting, something, a piece of cloth or whatever. That's nice and all, but that's not really, meditation. True spirituality is hard work. It's sacrifice, like, selflessness.
That's
one.
that's a quick one. Straight shooter.
Well, because a lot of times, like, these sort of things, when people do psychedelics, they experience these sort of altered states.
Right. We were gonna talk about that. Yeah, I think that'd be probably a good time.
Yeah.
Do we need a part 2? We're at an hour.
No, we're good. I think, these plant medicines, the natural one,
weed and mushrooms.
Weed, mushrooms, peyote, San Pedro, ayahuasca, decaf. These are all things. Not decaf. These are all things that. Just trying to find something like which one doesn't fit in with the rest. Decaf,
right, so
decaf.
You guys want to know, like, about? All right, so.
I'm super afraid of that because that's what you talked about when it comes to mushrooms. Because I do believe that it can, unlock things, but I just like, how do you know if you're ready for it to unlock? Right.
Yeah, so a lot of these psychoactive, psychedelic type of plants and herbs and whatnot, even alcohol to a certain extent.
Spirits. It's called spirits.
Yeah, no, really.
No, seriously, it's called spirits for a reason. That's mostly for Instacart purposes, but
people can have a spiritual, mystical experience with alcohol. Absolutely. So, what these things do is they activate certain chemicals. They activate, speaking like spiritually, metaphysically, chakras, and they can raise your consciousness. However, they do it in a forceful manner because you're ingesting it and boom. Whereas the natural way is through prayer, meditation, or serving others selflessly. Your consciousness will naturally rise. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, if you just say sip on ayahuasca, right? Which I did a little bit one time.
Ooh,
I saw a little
story
flask
time.
he had of it.
Story time.
I didn't have enough to say that. Yeah, I had this amazing mystical experience. I did. I had a good experience because the shaman did a healing on me after I sipped on the ayahuasca in Ecuador. But it came more from the healing he did than the ayahuasca because I had very little. He offered my mother too some ayahuasca. My mother was in the same room with me.
Bonding.
And I was like, Mom, like, she didn't know what it was. She's like,
no, great.
she's like, what is it? ¿Qué es esto? I said, Mommy, no.
Mom trips in the corner. Like,
So what do you guys have? We have Coke, Sprite, Fanta, ayahuasca. What can I get you?
Yeah, man, it was funny, but I knew what it was. I just had a few sips, and then I was like, all right, I can't have the whole thing because I'm gonna be with my family. So I had a great time because it was a healing he gave me. It was a beautiful healing. But going back to these type of psychoactive psychedelics and whatnot, yeah, it's forcing a rise of consciousness that you might not be ready for at the moment. And also, all these things can and most likely do have side effects. Okay. We're talking about like in your aura as well, especially if you abuse it. All right. If you do on moderation, alcohol, strict moderation alcohol or marijuana or any of these lesser type of things, okay, yeah, it might not really affect you so much. But if you abuse it, obviously,
Sure.
you know, and the same with mushrooms, the same with peyote, San Pedro, ayahuasca, Santo Daime, whatever you all the
Look how the accent's coming out there.
Yeah. So
Keep throwing some more words out there.
So
Now he's just naming places.
that's why, like, when it comes to these things, like,
Trees.
I don't recommend it to people. I don't. I really don't. I tell them, yeah, like, just be careful.
It's not for
really.
everyone in this lifetime, too. I think if you're attracted to it and you're really attracted to it and it feels natural, not like I want to do it so I have something to talk about at Burning Man, I think then you should go on that path. But I don't think it's for everyone. I don't think if you gave a glass of ayahuasca to every single living person right now that it would necessarily be a good thing.
For sure, if you gave a cup of coffee to every single person, some people would have anxiety attacks.
We just call that New York.
But that's the thing. Like,
You give a cup of coffee to everyone.
Seriously, some people's bodies don't react. It's the same with drugs, right? I've heard stories like I did mushrooms and I had a beautiful, blissful experience, and I was kind of hoping not to have that. I was like, I want to go deep into like the depths of my like pain or whatever, and sort of see what comes up. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. But then I've heard stories of complete opposite where people literally, like, someone killed someone doing shrooms for the first time. They thought the person was like gonna attack him. It was his best friend, and like
that's why it's always.
So you hear these stories, but then I've also heard the same thing with alcohol. I can tell you plenty of people that have drank and had a great time, and other people that have drank, got angry, and shot someone.
Yeah,
right.
You know, so
and that's from O'Doul's. So what would you say with mushrooms? What he just said, that someone thought that their friend was this malevolent person that was coming for them. Would you say an entity used the mushrooms, like the mushrooms open up your consciousness, an entity, a negative entity took over in some way, or what was the reality of that situation? Because a lot of people are like, no, he's hallucinating, he's tripping sack, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But
tripping sack?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
I think it's an expression.
It means, tripping balls.
Oh, are you making a joke?
No, no, because people say like
no, he was tripping out.
People
tripping sack.
Yeah, like
Brian is just an expression. God damn it! I'm the foreigner.
You heard this?
Yeah,
tripping sack.
No, but I can.
No,
I got it. But I thought it was like a
rolling. He's trying to be more appropriate, formal by not saying balls.
If you told
he's not tripping balls.
You know what I mean? That story, the explanation would be like, oh, he was tripping. He was out of his mind. Didn't know what was going on. But I want to know what you think. What was actually going on there? Because I don't think he was hallucinating. That doesn't cover the scope of what actually might have been happening.
I don't know for sure, but what I could say as a possibility is that yes, it could be that the mushrooms in this instance did open up a channel for an entity, a benevolent entity, to take over him. Absolutely. Yeah, because like I said, these type of medicines, some people call it, or psychedelics, they do speed things up, they do open things up. And that's why, going back I don't recommend it to anybody. I don't really do it myself so much anymore. I just don't. All the great spiritual masters, Buddha, Krishna, Jesus, Moses, on and on and on, have always taught the natural way. Okay, there's some people that believe Jesus might have done mushrooms or marijuana and other great beings. I don't believe that. I don't believe that
I
at
think
all.
Adderall.
I don't.
He got so much done.
Just going to the doctor.
Yeah, so the whole cross thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's just you're taking a risk. You're taking a huge risk, and when you do things the slow, the natural way, there's hardly any risk or no risk really. There is a quick path. There is a quick path in a natural way to raise your consciousness through really, really powerful secret type of kundalini. I don't know if you've heard of that word.
I did class.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, breathing exercises are probably one of the, if not the most easy and powerful way to gain access higher levels of consciousness.
We actually all did a cacao ceremony a few
Yes.
weeks ago.
We
There
did,
you
and
go.
it was a lot. It was very similar to Breath of Fire of Kundalini. It's basically identical to it, and I feel like everyone's consciousness.
There's one
definitely-
coming up. We should all go.
Yes, let's go.
A Kundalini class.
A Kundalini.
Let's do it.
class. I did Kundalini yoga
down?
for a while. Yeah, I mean, I
Are
could
you
do it.
down?
You know what's
Down?
I'm
You know
down.
what's
We're doing it.
interesting though? I probably did like 20 Kundalini classes and never had
Yeah.
the effects that I had with the cacao. Like
Which was more powerful, the cacao or
the cacao.
Oh yeah.
So I did the hyperventilating, the breath of fire, all that, but didn't have the really strong physical effects
There's
that I got from the
something-
cacao.
There's something about, because I've done stuff too similar to Breath of Fire, but in other sort of breathing things. And same, my cacao ceremony was so powerful. And I think part of that is laying down the cacao, opening up, whether that does anything or not. I don't know. It's basically hot chocolate. But I mean, it does.
But it's very, very potent.
It's very potent, right? And
Yeah.
it opens up. We say that
It's very
chocolate.
potent.
I mean, she gave me a McFlurry. I was like, all right, it's whatever. Let's do it.
That would be something. No, but I like that. Yeah, let's do it. Let's try it. Let's connect. I mean, I'm open for it, but I'm actually terrified of drugs. And you
Wait,
know
are we
that.
talking about doing a cacao?
I know. No.
What's
I said I want to do that because
drugs or the cacao?
no, not the drugs.
Not
'Cause
the
I'm
drugs.
afraid of the
Not
drugs.
the
So
drugs.
but I can do the
Okay,
breath work.
so the reason why people do these drugs and everything, it's to raise their consciousness or have some kind of experience. So the topic of
Some people do.
Some-
Why do some people freak out? Do you know?
because it's about having that balance between letting go and your ego being in control. And if your ego does not want to let go because you have those type of beliefs, then you're just going to have a tussle. And it's going to create a huge energetic discourse, and it's going to be a extremely physiological and psychological rough ride.
I mean,
allegedly.
I do have a big ego though.
We'll,
Big,
we'll get to a point in our spiritual evolution where we won't need any plants or anything like that to raise our consciousness. We really don't at this point right now. We don't. We have all the spiritual practices we need, like the breathing exercises, the mantras, the prayers. There's a whole plethora of exercises that great gurus and teachers have given us throughout the time, and even just like reading certain books, certain spiritual books, elevate your consciousness. I don't know about you, but certain affirmations elevate your consciousness. Positive thinking elevates your consciousness.
This podcast is sponsored.
So you really don't need these
Right.
substances.
Right, they're
you
all
know?
permission slips, as Bashar says.
Some of them are great permission slips,
Exactly.
though.
Some work better than others, but it's all tools to allow you to shift into that state. But you don't need the tool because you are the one shifting into it. Even drugs are permission slips.
Is
It's
that what you're just talking about?
no, but it's the same way that an affirmation, as going for a walk,
okay, I
as
see.
a cup of coffee, as a cup of ayahuasca, even though there's much more of a reality. We have a much, much stronger belief ingrained within us that this substance was going to bring us there. But then it's like the chicken and the egg thing. The DMT is already being produced in all of our brains. So did the ayahuasca, this seemingly outside of us substance, really do this? Or is there even an outside at all? Or is this just another orchestration of consciousness that opened me up. Enough about Grindr.
Like chicken and the egg question. I'm just thinking about. I'm sorry. This is like a complete sidetrack.
No,
But
apologize.
when we're talking about this, I just remembered when I was a kid, because I haven't watched a horror movie, and that's like one of my rules, that I don't watch horror movies because I get super afraid of it. It's like my
Same.
brain cannot. It's like it cannot.
About that.
No, don't turn on
Yeah.
any horror movies.
So you
So
don't like Halloween then, probably.
No, I honestly don't. But it's not a thing in Sweden, so
That's
I
why
didn't
you
have
didn't
to
pick
worry.
up your phone.
I was no.
What's that famous Swedish film
Midsummer.
director?
So good. Midsummer.
Midsummer.
Ali Arster?
No, I'm talking about like from way back that film, like these dark films. Ingrid Ilmar? No.
Oh yeah, Ingmar Bergman.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
That-
awesome.
that guy. Yeah.
Swedish.
Seven. The film Seven.
I don't
With
even
Brad-
remember
Seals,
what
Seven
he did, but
So, 7 Psychopaths?
Seventh
Okay.
Heaven.
sidetrack. When I was a kid, never watched horror movies because I couldn't do it, and I became like, I think I was like 12 or 13, and all my friends really wanted to watch horror movies. I don't know why. They really liked the feeling of being scared, and so I like watched one, and it was this with the girl with the black hair that was like on her face, and it's Japanese. I don't know.
The Ring.
The
The
Ring.
Grudge.
Yeah.
The Grudge.
The Grudge or
The
The Ring.
Grudge.
It was
Wait.
one of them.
The Grudge was a Japanese film, and then the Ring.
Okay, one of them.
Wait,
One of them.
Is this a Mandela thing? Do you know what
No.
The Ring is?
Yes.
Yeah.
And do you know what The Grudge is?
I just destroyed the couch.
So I've heard of both films. I just
They
don't
both
know.
do exist, right? This is not going to be one of the...
You're in-
What happened?
She's becoming the couch.
Amanda just... Those who are listening, Amanda just fell into the couch. and
Amanda
broke
just
it.
parted the cushions like it's the Red Sea itself. She
She's
might
really advancing
and she
on
might
it.
have her
She's-
period right now, so maybe it is parting a Red Sea. We can cut that if you want.
I really got enlightened today.
What happened? How are you in the couch right
She's
now?
elevating her
Must
consciousness.
have been that cacao.
I just, I'm here. But
She's in the
I'm
couch.
just here.
What if The Ring and The Grudge, only one of them exists?
No,
They
it's
both
too
exist.
But what if only one does?
I
And it's a
feel the
Mandela
same way 'cause
situation.
I was like-
It sounds like it could be, but
Right?
they both exist.
I think I've
The
been-
Ring is like the little girl, and the
The Grudge is a little girl.
So like, okay, I just want to like jump in here for a second because I feel sort of like you, Amanda. Like I don't want have anything to do with horror films. Like I used to watch a few here and there, but now I don't. I just don't feel the need to get into that negativity.
I don't
You
like
know what I'm
watching
saying?
violence. I don't like watching gratuitous violence.
And that too. Although sometimes I do watch UFC a bit because I admire it as a sport. Like I started
Right.
training in kickboxing and jiu-jitsu some months ago. So I admire the ability, the technique that these fighters have. And then a lot of the times they actually end up shaking hands and like they show good sportsmanship. So I admire that. But yeah, sometimes I'm like, this is way too bloody. Like, So I try to detach from that and just see the skill and ability. But when it comes to like films and that sort of thing, like, no, it's that can cause a lot of problems in society too. People get all these ideas about shooting up entire places, and it's happened. When what was that film, that Joker film released?
oh yeah,
There was people like shooting each other or that sort of thing. So it's like I understand like Hollywood, the film industry wants to like pump out cool stuff, but is it really doing something positive for the
right.
world?
Is
Like,
there really this large of a market for violence? Because it seems like
Yes.
there is.
100%.
There is.
And
Yes.
I think
there is, and it's not a good thing.
I
It's a good thing
disagree,
if you
though.
want to make
I don't
money.
like watching
but-
violent things just because they're violent. Some things really just shake me up, and I don't
I
want to
think
watch it.
I disagree in this statement. I think horror films, while I don't really watch them that much, they can be fun to watch because we're getting that sense of being scared. And the reason people watch it, most people, is they like to feel that sense of like, oh my God, there's someone here. That thrill. It's a safe thrill. They know it's a suspension of disbelief. They know that like they're not actually gonna get attacked by this little girl, but at the same time, they can feel that sense of fear.
That's the fun part, because that's what I was getting to. Because when I was 12 years old, I was convinced that if I believed in something hard enough, it would appear. Which means that if I filled my my mind with these characters, they would appear. I was so certain of it.
I mean,
when
something on that vibration maybe not the exact same thing, but something that also instilled that fear in you is going to appear because the
exactly. So I was
vibration
like,
needs to it's going to manifest.
Don't be scared. It was like, so I remember one time I was just with I think just a friend having a sleepover, and we were staring at the handle to the door, and I was like, don't, and I had this conversation. I was like, we should not think about it. We should not look at it. I shouldn't concentrate on that it's going to open, because if I do concentrate on it, it will. So I was like, don't think about it. Don't think about it. And that's why I stopped watching horror movies, because it just spirals my imagination. No, it didn't, because I stopped thinking about it. That's why it didn't open.
Like with Joker, I've seen the movie 3 or 4 times, and I find it just beautiful in terms of the acting, the narrative.
Yeah.
I don't think it instills violence the same way the book doesn't instill violence. I think people can take whatever they want from it, but I think it's a form of art. It's a form of expression. And like, some people watched it and felt the same way you felt. They felt like, this is disgusting, this is grotesque, this is encouraging kids to act violent and rebel and all that. And others got completely different opinions on it. I felt it was quite beautiful. This story of someone struggling, and this character, also a character that we grew up with Batman and the Joker, and we're seeing the more human side of this villain. And in that sense, I enjoyed it.
I just think, like, I see where you're coming from, but I think, like, you can portray that without having to go to that, space of grotesqueness and violence. Like, an example is a movie like Star Wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have, like, these really disgustingly violent parts in the film, like where you see a lot of blood and guts. And
I mean, they don't see that, but they still, like, the
you don't
mom
see
gets killed.
We
see all this, but just kind of quick.
It's quick, and
but it's still there, right?
It's still there, and it's done in a more classy way, and like, you just don't have like this overarching like darkness feel at the end of the movie, and you don't have also like a lot of like profanity or sexuality and this and that. It's more, I feel it's more like clean, if that's the word,
And
it can go
it's
both
more
ways.
classical and clean.
It's more like whatever violence is, it's used for storytelling. It's not used for
exactly.
an effect.
It's not like a Tarantino film, right?
Yeah.
I love Tarantino.
And I know Tarantino. I know.
Use the same argument against Kill Bill. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Film. It's brilliant.
And I'm not saying it's not. I mean, like, a lot of evil dictators like Hitler and stuff, they were brilliant people.
No, but I'm saying,
like,
in terms of an art form.
Right.
I mean, to take that, like, when we get into censoring people and the way they can express themselves.
I don't believe in censoring. I
that's
believe in.
What we're talking
yeah.
about.
We'll beep that part out.
We will censor that out.
No, like, I'm just saying, like, I believe in educating people. I believe in, like, hey, like, this is what you could do, right? But you could do whatever the heck you want. If you wanna do blood, gore, and tits everywhere and all that stuff, fine. It's up to you. But this is what you could do, at least know. And this is the kind of reaction that people would have. Just be aware of that.
But we
and
have
a lot
so
of them
many films, right? So we have I don't know, side conversation. We have different we have love stories. We have this. See, I think it can go both ways. Like, some countries, I forgot which film it was a Marvel film, I believe, and they're not playing. It was either China or somewhere in the Middle East, actually. And because there was 2 guys kissing, they scrapped the movie. Because, like, we don't want this. It's sort of the same thing, right? It's the same sort of argument. We don't want our culture being, put down because there's 2 men doing this. We don't believe in it. We're saying the exact same thing. We don't want this being shown because it's violent. We don't want to. I mean, it's the same argument.
Yeah, but I still think violence is different, because I mean,
of
movies,
censorship. I'm saying, and I don't believe in either of
But
it.
it's also
true.
context. If you're showing 2 men kissing or anyone kissing and it's grounded in love versus people kissing in a pornographic, maybe lower chakra type of sexual energy,
or just
it's all about how
like
Bang
blood.
Bus, the Sesame Street meets Bang Bus is not appropriate for a kid.
Well, tell X videos that.
But I think just like that. I think having ratings is important. I don't think kids should be exposed to so much violence or extreme violence or extreme sexuality. But I don't think they should be repressed from it. I don't think you know,
they should be taught it. They should
Exactly.
be taught,
But the
'cause-
thing is, like the most horrible scene ever that always makes me cry, that has to do with death. It's Bambi. Have you seen it? It's a
I can't
Disney
remember.
movie
Does he
about
get
this.
shot?
His mom gets shot, but you don't
Oh.
see her get shot. You just like hint it.
Oh,
That's
dear.
a great film.
And
because
that's
it,
a great
shows
because
us,
it
like-
shows death, but you don't see it.
That's,
No,
that's smart.
that's not why it's great. It's
That is-
great because it teaches us that like where our food comes from. Bambi got shot by a hunter, and now they're
Oh
gonna
my
eat
goodness,
the mom.
no, Brian.
No, but
How
like,
often
it
are you
doesn't
having
teach
venison?
you that.
Just getting very Joe Rogan. So, Rexy,
Are
open
you
the
are you
fridge.
vegetarian or something?
No, I'm not vegetarian.
Have you had deer meat recently?
I'm not. Are you vegetarian? No.
I used to be.
Because I don't.
love the
when
idea of
when,
it,
when I
but
saw
eventually I
Bambi,
will
when I
be.
saw Bambi get shot, it wasn't like that's where the dinner tonight came.
No,
from.
exactly.
that's-
But I'm saying it teaches you empathy because you're like, no, and then it's like this is the circle of life. This is like,
Yeah.
you know, Bambi's mom gets murdered and eaten. It's the circle
But like
of life.
that is the most beautiful scene ever, because he's just like,
Why is it beautiful?
because you hear the shot and you don't understand it that in that sense when you're a kid, because you don't really imagine it, but then when you watch it as a grown up, which I do,
You like the
Then-
subtlety of it.
yeah, and then you
Mm.
just like see him in panic just running around and
Mm.
saying mom all over again, and then,
Yeah.
like I burst in tears, like
Yeah.
I'm probably crying now when I'm thinking about it.
I personally don't love horror films. I don't find gore that great. I don't.
No.
It doesn't do anything for me. But in terms of like as an artist and appreciating that expression of art and that expression of diving into areas that you couldn't otherwise do in real life, right? You can't go out and I mean you could, but I hope you're not slicing people
Yeah.
up. But when it's done in such a, even in like Kill Bill, it's almost
Mm.
done in a ridiculous sense. How much blood is squirting out that it's almost not realistic at all.
Mm.
But it's a story of revenge, and like the amount of blood intensifies as her revenge intensifies, and as she gets closer to finding Bill, it keeps getting more and more people are dying more because it's all symbolism for that in that regard. So I get where you're coming from. Like I don't think kids should be watching that, you know, at that level of blood and gore and
Yeah.
and violence. And they've done. I remember we talked about this in school. There's all these studies on this.
So you're a teacher, right?
I used to teach English out in Asia for a few years.
but he's not.
Okay.
Are
But
you
I don't
a
teach
teacher?
now. I teach improv comedy.
But
here
are
and
you
there.
like?
Okay.
Do you have a formal education as a teacher?
No.
No.
I mean, I've
You have
te-
teach.
I have
like,
certifications
yeah.
for teaching.
Yeah. I just,
TEFL, ESL,
I-
and then in
yeah.
school I was psychology and anthropology.
I was
Okay.
I was a substitute teacher for 5 years.
Really?
There's a
In-
reason why both of us are not in it anymore.
Our
Not
reasons
gonna
might
pay
be
the
different, but
It's
But,
teaching can be very rewarding. There's other forms of doing it, I think. I love teaching adults. I love teaching kids. I love teaching improv comedy. That is
Mm.
really fun. That gets me like lit up.
it's awesome.
But teaching English, it can be rewarding in some aspects, but just doing that 30 hours a week
Mm.
and doing it in foreign countries, it was challenging. And I'm glad I did it, but
Yeah.
moving like it's not where my trajectory is now.
Because like in my experience as a substitute teacher, I got exposed to a lot of obviously kids all the time, mostly middle school kids,
Mm.
12, 13. And I got exposed to a lot of the music they were listening to. And I mean, like the music nowadays, I always say, oh, the music nowadays. I mean, it's kind of the same as it was back in the 90s, early 2000s when I was in school growing up. It's just a lot of profanity, a lot of craziness. But I feel like it's kind of gone a notch above now.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the Grammys, for example, like, it's just like, what is going on here? Like, and
Right, I
middle
agree,
school
yeah,
kids are
yeah.
watching this and glorifying,
yes.
Yeah.
Nicki
Some of these
Minaj
TikTok,
and
Well,
like,
some of
you-
these TikTok videos, I'm like, wait, what are they
You
saying?
feel like a prude, and you feel like you're
yeah,
really like becoming like that old grumpy man. But I remember watching the Cardi B performance. I think it was
Yeah.
at the Grammys. I was like, whoa, this is so sexual. I've never.
this wasn't around when I was in middle
It-
school kind of thing. Like,
It
I-
definitely wasn't.
it wasn't, and I'm sitting here thinking, I mean, coming from the spiritual, I guess, background that I come from, I'm thinking like, my goodness, I mean, this is why I don't want children, number one. Number two, it's just like, what is going on here? Like, obviously, like the education system, the teachers here and the parents aren't doing a good job. I mean, if there are millions of kids watching this and glorifying this, there's something wrong here. Because if we have kids in the future, wanting to behave that way, how the heck are we going to survive as a human race? I'm being straight up like honest.
And it
like,
also begs the question, why is this what the media is presenting? Is there actually a demand for it, or is it just there's something else going on here that kind of media content is being
Right.
pushed out to invert and pervert
Well, that's a
sex
good-
as much as possible?
that's a good question.
And violence.
because I think honestly most people, and I remember this from my teachings, most people rather do good. Most people rather not murder and thieve. All right. I think we can go around and ask people that. You might have some few douchebags say, yeah, no, I'd murder that person, kill them easily, or steal that, but most people I think would rather prefer something positive. And I think most people are searching for truth, searching for goodness, which is the same thing. So the reason why this is being pumped out in the mainstream begs the question, what is really behind that? And maybe we could do a whole podcast about that.
Yeah, that's a part too.
Maybe a part two.
I mean, guys, we have to wrap up.
We
but
do.
we need
Ernesto,
to do a part two.
We can do a
of
part
this.
two.
We can.
With everyone.
He's definitely going to come back. Where can people find your work or find you on the internet?
So you can find me on Instagram, Ernesto, ERNESTO, Villacis, VILLACIS. I also have a healing thing going on, Condor Healing Arts. You could find me also, I'm doing healings in East LA at a crystal store called Starlight Crystal Center. So if you're in LA and you'd like to try one of my healing sessions and come in for a talk or something, check out starlightmission.com. I also belong to a nonprofit organization / non-denominational church, the Ethereal Society. Check them out. They have a lot of interesting things to say in regards to UFOs. So, yeah.
Awesome.
We'll see you
Cool.
there.
I hope this
All
was
right.
enlightening for everyone. I feel like we all definitely
This
learned.
is a fun podcast.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Amanda fell on the couch. It's so much fun.
I was so enlightened.
Amanda
so
really cushioned the conversation.
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
Guys, this has been 3 People on a Couch. Catch you next episode. Good night.
Bye.
I really feel a peacefulness being here. Like I can walk down the street and wear my gay pride stuff. Like I can, I turn the corner and I never know like what accent's gonna come out of someone's mouth or what language they're gonna speak. Or it's all so exciting and I just like it so far. I don't know.
I feel like I had the same impression when I first moved here. I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Mhm.
And now I'm like, I wonder what homeless guy I'm going to run into today.
How did people like in the 70s and 80s, how did they have orgies without phones?
What do you need a phone for in the middle of an orgy?